can't tell you exactly what year it is, because we honestly don't know.
Welcome, one and all, to MINDSHOCK. This is your host, Bruce McGuire, and this is the real history of the world, part 2, where we'll be logically examining and attempting to piece together all known information about the true history of mankind in this realm known as Earth in a succinct, comprehensive fashion, or as succinct as possible given the plethora of material to parse, without taking anything on blind faith or falling for logical fallacies like pretty much anything and everything else out there. If you want to help support the podcast, help logic and reason return to a world where it is quickly going extinct, as evidenced in the masses' reaction to just the possibility that they might have been hoodwinked about the history of the world and many other things. You can donate to our PayPal. Check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patreon is to get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You could also be a guest on the podcast, depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. Unless, of course, you are with us here live. Then drop them in the live chat. I'll try to get to all of them. So we will be picking up right where we left off last time. Obviously going through information on the Stolen History Forum, which is, again, not the first iteration. Some conspiracy theories persist about some kind of changing of ownership with this particular forum. But I don't know. Some of it looks like it was the original information. Some people think it is now controlled, as always, in pretty much every conspiratorial topic. This goes on. So last time we were talking about, obviously, the Book of Enoch and all that entails. And now we are going to be moving on to, we also discussed book printing in the alleged timeline of what is supposedly AD and supposedly unbroken, but we again are going to be examining all of that. Antediluvian and such. So let's move on to Capriccio artists. So this is a very interesting topic. Let me bring up a painting here. So this, shall I bring up a couple here so we can look at them and what they depict. Obviously, we can't really trust the dates here. Well, one of them is here on the screen already, but here's a couple other ones. So this is Giovanni Paolo Panini with quite a few different paintings here depicting what exactly and when. These are pretty stunning. So, again, continuing this article here on stolenhistory.org, in painting, a capriccio means an architectural fantasy placing together buildings, archaeological ruins, and other architectural elements in fictional and often fantastical combinations. These paintings may also include staffage figures. Capriccio falls under the more general term of landscape painting. The term is also used for other artworks with an element of fantasy, or alleged fantasy, rather. As you can see, with no proof or documentation, several generations of artists were labeled as liars, albeit in a politically correct manner. Meanwhile, early practitioners of the genre who made the genre popular in the mid-17th century Rome, including Alessandro Sallucci and Viviano Codazzi, between 1590 and 1655 or 1660 for Sallucci and 1604 to 1670 for Codazzi. So when you see these images, who was originally building, using, and living in structures like these, and how tall were they? Humans quite small here. So, in my opinion, these structures have very little to do with the poor souls presented in the paintings. These, I think, are antediluvian buildings, the likes of which would later be attributed to ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt. What we see is the some years later aftermath of the Great Deluge. Dark Ages, in my opinion. And again, these are all quite spectacular architecture for the time, or for any time, really. I mean, look at this. Look at how tiny the people are. Some Mayor Quinn in the chat. Hi, Bruce. You got me shocked with the last stream. Been beach watching, or binge watching, or binge watching on the beach. That's always a good activity. Non-stop, a lot of the hidden land, missing history content since then. Yeah, it is quite fascinating. But you ain't seen nothing yet. The receipts that are about to be provided for some of this is just truly, truly mind-shocking. Perhaps more mind-shocking than anything else. Fantasy. Clearly a lot of buildings presented in these types of paintings were destroyed. Yet, a little bit of research demonstrates that the label of architectural fantasy is very misleading, and in my opinion was designed to hide our true past and rearrange dates. So, what are the receipts for these? For this particular claim here? And again, notice how the bootlickers, the authority-worshipping cultist coincidence theorists, they just take on blind faith as at face value that this is capriccio and this is all fantasy instead of reality, when you can see that some of this alleged fantasy is still present today. And you could even see the angle at which some of this was painted. Quite fascinating indeed. And the burden of proof is always on positive claims. So let's look at this. So this is the alleged capriccio or whatever. Anything that can't be that doesn't match the official narrative is just labeled fantasy. But look at the scale here. Look at this. It's quite interesting. That all of this appears to depict what was real. And what would be the point of just randomly painting a building that's not really there among a whole bunch of buildings that are there? I mean, it's just kind of a weird attempt to dismiss anything that doesn't match the official narrative by the powers that be. Welcome, Justin Johnson, the one and only. 1600s map cities and lands. I started to consider that a lot of the maps we are allowed to see are antediluvian maps. I also started to consider that a lot of the devastating urban and geological events pointed to the mid-1600s. At least the ones below do. I am not going to go into details, for if you truly want to see what I mean, the link should be sufficient enough. And let's see, should we actually go through some of these links? So, yeah, I mean, this is quite extensive, so I'm not going to go through Pompeii. I will do a dedicated podcast on Pompeii, but I'll actually, let's do a little teaser, though. Let's do a little teaser on Pompeii, just because a lot of people might be new here, and they might think that we're not providing receipts for claims. Let's provide all the receipts here. So the official narrative on Pompeii here. Vast archaeological site, southern Italy, near the coast of the Bay of Naples. Once a thriving and sophisticated Roman city, Pompeii was buried under meters of ash and pumice after the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, allegedly. The preserved site features excavated ruins of streets and houses that visitors can freely explore. So 6th, 7th century BC it was founded, allegedly, and the eruption in 79 AD, allegedly. Now, supposedly the first time any of Pompeii and Herculaneum were unearthed is 1599. Through the digging of an underground channel to divert the river Sarno, which ran into ancient walls and that were covered with paintings and inscriptions. The architect, Domenico Fontana, was called in. He unearthed a few more frescoes, then covered them over again, and nothing more came of the discovery. Pompeii was rediscovered as the result of intentional excavations in 1748 by the Spanish military engineer Roque Joaquin de Alcubierre, allegedly. So that was 1748, allegedly. So we have a few different claims here. So we have claims that some of the city was dug out in 1599, but not officially linked to Pompeii. And then the officially 1748. So that's, again, you have plausible deniability built in here with the confusing of the narrative. So actually, why don't we dive into Pompeii? Why don't we do it? This is MINDSHOCK after all. So again, from Stolen History, I plan on showing you that Pompeii suffered its fate in 1631, which makes our official history 1,552 years off. I'm not sure we can make that link, though, just because this is off. It doesn't mean everything is off, but let's continue. Maybe everything is off. Again, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. The only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. So, I have a pretty strong feeling that the official liars, and I do not mean your local history teacher, know about their mess up. Unfortunately for them, there was some supporting fake evidence created, and it is no longer possible to portray Pompeii Gate as a simple mistake. So, as always, it's not always the crime, but it's the cover-up. If the cover-up is too sloppy, we have detail, or at least those who are able to think critically can look at those details and find the truth. They simply cannot play it down due to some highly questionable fakish evidence of the Vesuvius eruption and Pompeii Herculaneum destruction created to support the date of 79 AD. The officials tied too many historical individuals into this story. It is impossible to correct the timing of the destruction of Pompeii without messing up their entire timeline. Below is an example of such evidence. Gaius Suetonius Tranquillus, commonly known as Suetonius, 69 to 122 AD, was a Roman historian belonging to the equestrian order who wrote during the early imperial era of the Roman Empire, allegedly, of course. His most important surviving work is a set of biographies of 12 successive Roman rulers from Julius Caesar to Domitian, entitled De Vita Caesarum. He recorded the earliest accounts of Caesar's epileptic seizures. Oh, is that a coincidence? Caesar seizure? And again, supposedly Caesar means king or ruler in Tartarian, but we'll get to that later. Other works by Suetonius concern the daily life of Rome, politics, oratory, and the lives of famous writers, including poets, historians, grammarians. A few of these books have partially survived, but many have been lost. Our official history claims he stated the following about the Roman Emperor Titus, quote, "There was some dreadful disasters during his reign, such as the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in Campania, a fire at Rome which continued 3 days and as many nights, and a plague the like of which had hardly ever been known before," end quote. That's kind of curious. Coincidentally, Titus ruled from June 23rd, 79 AD to September 13th, 81 AD, which covers the official last day of Pompeii. My point, if the eruption indeed took place in 1631, then this Suetonius account is either a fake figure or he lived at a totally different time. Considering that Titus is tied into the entire history of ancient Rome, fill in the blanks yourself. Various internet sources were used to piece this together, so evidence pointing to 1631. So let's look at the evidence here. And we will go through all of this. And we will see how much weight any of this holds. So here we go. So we'll go through all these maps. 15, again, alleged dates, 1514, 1570, 1575, 1603. Etchings from 1633, Epitaphio de Portici, 1631. The Three Graces, 1st century AD, verse 1503, 1505. Pineapples on the Pompeii frescoes. Dominique Fontana's water conduit, 1590s, and water wells. I mean, this one's really interesting, actually. Piranesi Pompeii, Christianity in before Christ Pompeii, and also surgical tools, which is quite interesting as well. So in these maps, so this is 1514, Opusculum distinctum plenum clarum and utile Ambrogio Leone, who allegedly lived from 1458 or 1459 to 1525. And again, anybody can verify this. This is all archived from various libraries. Once again, the source here, De Nola Opusculum Distinctum Plenum Clarum Doctum Pulchrum Verum Grae Varium and Utile by Leone Ambrogio. 1520, well, actually it says 1520, oh, that's his death date, 1525. The date of the map here, 1514, I'll put it on the screen right now. So here we have, so this is 1514, and we have Herculaneum and Pompeii on this map from 1514. 1514. Now, once again, even in the plausible deniability narrative, it wasn't until 1599 that tunnels were dug out and not officially linked to Pompeii. So they just simply found some underground stuff in 1599. So why would both Herculaneum and Pompeii show up on this map from 1514? Very curious. So does that mean that people in 1514 not only knew about what happened to the cities even though they were supposedly covered? Or, I mean, and then they didn't know about it in 1599? Like, what's, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what this means exactly. But it's a curiosity, nonetheless. Now let's look at this map from Ortelius Regni Napolitani Verissima by Abraham Ortelius. So this is 1570. Again, before they were digging out these tunnels or whatever that were not linked to Pompeii. So this 1570 map also has Pompeii in it, or Pompeia, but it's right next to Vesuvius, so clearly it's the same Pompeii. Curious. So, what does this mean? Now, here is yet another one. 1575 Regno di Napoli, Antonio Lafreri. Also before the dugout date. So even the plausible deniability doesn't even really add up here. So here you have Pompeii 1575. Okay. Curious. And you can see the other cities around it too. Now, not all of them show all of the cities, but yeah, it's in the same spot in all of these maps. So now this is after the alleged dugout date of 1599. This is 1603 Italia Antiqua by Philip Cluver. And again, the official narrative is that they didn't know what they dug out. So even on this map, they shouldn't know where it is. And yet, here it is. Curious. So now let's look at some etchings. So there's a 1633 etching pertaining to the eruption of 1631. So let's look at this etching, which is quite fascinating. I'll give you the source for the etching in a second. So here you have Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Vesuvius. And this is right here at the top, describing the etching of before and after the eruption of 1631. Now, I do want to bring up the point here, because in this revisionist narrative, it's very easy for the quackademics and all the coincidence theorists, bootlickers, to pretend that everybody was always on the same timeline. But in 1631, how were they counting the year? Were they really counting after death of Christ? Were they counting from the beginning of the world? The answer, of course, is we don't know how or from what they were counting when they recorded any of these dates. Let's just keep that in mind. But the source of this etching is Giovanni Battista Mascolo. 16... So apparently this etching was done in 1633. And Mascolo lived until 1656, allegedly. Okay, so this is Mount Vesuvius before and after the eruption. And you can find these etchings at the LUC library website, libblogs.luc.edu. And this is Loyola University, Chicago. So they have all of these etchings on their library website. And these are etchings specifically before and after the 16... I mean, it's kind of scary. Look at this. Look at these plumes. I don't know who this person in the sky is, but look at these plumes and just the destruction here. Scary, scary stuff here. So, what's curious is, even according to the official history, Vesuvius did erupt in 1631. So, the conflation here, possibly, is that it may have also been if the date was changed here. Because how would you know? Because if the cities were completely covered in ash in 79, like, did they... So, like, it's just kind of weird. So, in the official narrative, the 1631 eruption didn't really affect Pompeii and Herculaneum because they were already under ash and those cities did not exist. However, on this etching... They're still labeled here as if they're normal cities with all these other cities. Now, according to the official narrative here on Wiki, it says that It's one of the most destructive episodes in history, one of the deadliest of all time, the 1631 eruption. At least 4,000 people killed. Now, what's kind of curious is the images shown on the wiki are not Mascolo's work. So this is actually, they credited this to an unknown author. So this is, I don't know if they fabricated this in order to cover up the fact that Pompeii and Herculaneum were still cities at this time. But this is what shows up on the wiki, which is curious. So this is on Wikipedia without any of the cities labeled in full. But clearly no Pompeii and Herculaneum here. They're just not here, as if it's like, you know, the attempted cover-up. But like I said, with the source here, you can go on actual university library websites and see the work here by Giovanni Battista Mascolo, clearly showing Pompeii and Herculaneum still at normal cities here, known cities, and they're shown here as if they're just as active as all these other cities before and after the 1631 eruption. DeWitt, you want to rephrase your question? I'm not sure what the relevancy to these specific images are. What's also interesting here is, yeah, so the Loyola University Chicago Digital Special Collections is where you can find these images. And again, very curious that these aren't the ones used on the wiki. So let's look at something else here. So Epitaffio de Portici, following the disastrous eruption of Vesuvius in 1631, the Viceroy Zuniga had an epitaphio placed to admonish the dangers of the volcano in the future. The epitaph is placed in the current corner between Corso Garibaldi and Via Gianturco, just to the left of Palazzo Ruffo de Bainara. Below is the original Latin version and the Italian translation by the Lions Club, Portici Miglio d'Oro, reported on a sign on the right of the epitaph. So this is it right here. Quite old. Although, of course, this is all the alleged dates. All alleged here. So this is it right here. This is the translation right here. So from the Latin, Google Translate says this: at 8th and 60th after the 17th calendar as of January, King Philip IV, smoke, flames, boats, shocking ashes, eruption, horrible, wild, if Vesuvius ever neither name nor faces exterminated such a man, because the cavity burning with fire ignited, furious, roaring, struggling out, the constrained air shot across the Hellespont, violently divided by the mountaintop, erupted a hip in the afternoon, drawing ashes to explode the sea, rivers of sulfur, flaming bitumen, cautionary alumine feet, forms of each ore of metal, mixed with waters of voirs of fire, fever which waves with ashes, falling, destroying the mountain range, Pompeii, Hercules, Octavia, stricting the reefs and the portico forests, villas, momentarily destroying, burning, destroying while laying a vast triumph. This marble, highly septomed, was consulted with a monument for the pro regis, neither shall Immacuzel Fonseca and Sunica, with the comes mount is regis prorex, which by the greatness of his animal might, consulted by the people's extract of a found stone, he restored the heaven, he restored the road, still smoked an indigenous Vesuvo, in the year 1735, the Prefector of Rhodes, Antonio Suarez Messia Marchi on Vici. Very curious here that, so, So apparently this was composed in 1631. So they all knew about Pompeii and Herculaneum in that year? So if they all knew, then why is the official narrative... Why is the official narrative that it was so-called discovered in 1748? So it was actually initial rediscovery in 1592 and 1599. They were digging the underground tunnels, but apparently Domenico Fontana covered them up. Nothing more came of the discovery. Pompeii was rediscovered 1748. So, like, this is kind of weird. Like, what's the official narrative here? Oh, okay. DeWitt says Pardon my poor articulation. I was merely curious who the image in the cloud or vapor represents. It might be that my musings are unrelated to the primary person. No, it's somewhat related, but yeah, okay, that individual up top. Yeah, we're gonna get to that, because that's not the only individual like that that's in drawings and paintings. So some kind of church figure, and that hat is very symbolic of many things, so we'll be getting to that as well. Justin Johnson says, call me crazy, but I happen to think volcanoes are also not what we have been told, just another deception. Unfortunately, the script writers are not very credible, to say the least. Critter Mama says, broken translation. Well, what's curious, though, broken translation or not, you can see here that Pompeii, right here, Pompeius Herculaneum. So they knew about all of it back then? So did they know? Was there another catastrophic event? Everybody forgot everything. We'll be getting into that with maps. There was another reset or worldwide catastrophe. Was it the Great Flood of the Bible? Whatever. But before then, people knew about the previous catastrophe? Or is this all related to the same event? And the year numbers were muddled, and perhaps muddled on purpose. Alright, let's move on to the three graces here and see what we can figure out in relation to Pompeii here with the three graces. So this excavated fresco. So this is a bizarre coincidence. Pompeii was not found until 1748. But Raphael painted his masterpiece in 1503 to 1505. So, Roman civilization, 1st century AD, this fresco depicting the three graces, this is from Pompeii. It was found on the south wall of the tablinum 9.2.6, or IX.2.16, now in Naples Archaeological Museum, inventory number 9236. So I'm going to bring up, here's a modern image of the excavated city, and this is where it was allegedly found. So this is where this was found. Welcome, Chin Chin. And you know what's kind of crazy? Looking at some of these images, is this really from 79 AD? I mean, you could see some of this plaster, painted plaster here. I mean, yeah, it was covered, allegedly, it was all covered in volcanic ash from 79 AD, if the official timeline is true. Does that really look that old, though? I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue for all the triggered goofs. claiming I'm appealing to incredulity. I'm just asking a question. Is that 2,000-year-old plaster right there? Is that even a 2,000-year-old wall? Or does that look closer to something in the 1600s? Just asking questions. Just asking questions here. Would anybody be surprised if that wall was from the 1600s? Beacon of Truth Tarot says it's crazy we never saw these discrepancies before. Oh, there's a laundry list, my friends. There is a giant laundry list. But just, like, look at this stone here. Is this road from 79 AD or even earlier? So the city of Pompeii, we don't know exactly when they built this specific road, but let's look at the claimed timeline. Is that this city was founded in 7th, 6th century BC, so hundreds of years prior to the destruction. So, I mean, is this stone 2,500, over 2,500 years old? Look at this wall. Is this wall 2,500 years old? Or does it look like it's from the 1600s? Does it look a couple hundred years old? Or does it look 2,500 plus? 2,700 years old? What does everybody think here? Justin Johnson says, I don't believe any timeline older than a few hundred years due to not being able to validate. Yeah, it's a tough one. This is a tough one. And look at this plaster. Is this plaster 2,800 years old? I mean, I've seen buildings that are 80 years old that look similar to this. Again, I'm not claiming any dates here. Now, is it possible that it was just covered in ash and protected from the normal erosion you would get in open air ruins? But I suppose anything is possible. Let's look at one more close-up image of this wall. Would anybody believe, like, if you didn't know what you were looking at, this looks like it could be the projects in kind of any major city. I mean, this could be Crooklyn, this could be LA. I mean, this could be anywhere. I mean, look at that. Is this 2,700 years old? So they unearthed it, but the plaster, like, how did they unearth it? So the grass is growing back after it. They unearthed it, and then the plaster started falling off of it. I mean, that almost looks like a modern cement job, doesn't it? Doesn't this look like it was made with modern tools? Like some kind of modern cement smoothing here. I don't know. These claimed dates are pretty wild. Pretty wild. DeWitt says, undoubtedly well preserved, particularly being a seaside town. Justin Johnson claims BS. Alright, let's continue here. So, this is the 1503-05 Raphael painting of the Three Graces. So it's interesting. Some distinct differences in what they're holding in their hands, but same pose, almost the same pose, same exact pose. Actually, looks like the hands on the shoulders might be slightly different. But, yeah, pretty much the same. The foot position also slightly different. Or the overlap. And the headdress. So this is Raphael's oil on canvas. So this is housed in the Museum Condé of Chantilly, France. The date of origin has not been positively determined, although it seems to have been painted at some point after his arrival to study with Pietro Perugino in about 1500, possibly 1503, 1505. So, what's the question here? The Three Graces. So, when were they first painted? What is the first instance of the Three Graces? So, supposedly these are the three Charites, the daughters of Zeus, identified on some engravings from left to right: Ephrosyne, Aglaia, and Thalia, who were said to represent mirth, elegance, and beauty. So what's curious here is this this sculpture. Anybody who wants to guess the date for this particular sculpture, famous in history? So these are the Three Graces. So was this made from this statue? Well, the plot's about to thicken a little further, because this is from 1814. So these supposed statues, I mean, they're still quite detailed. I mean, who knows what kind of technology was used to create this. But this is 1814, Antonio Canova, and yet we have Raphael painting this in 1500, but this is from a Pompeii fresco supposedly covered in ash at the time of Raphael. So this is before the 1631 eruption. So John Russell, the 6th Duke of Bedford, commissioned this particular version. This is the 1814 sculpture. So supposedly started in 1814, completed in 1817. In 1819, it was installed at the Duke's residence in Woburn Abbey, Bedfordshire, England. So, yeah, that's curious, is it not? So this is the most famous version of the three graces. There are some works from, you know what else is kind of curious? I found another one here. Oil on oak panel. From 1630 to 1635. Which is kind of curious. But they're all posed the same way, which is curious, isn't it? Yeah, all these other depictions are later. So there is an older depiction here. This is Botticelli's Primavera, 1482. But this is clearly not the same piece. It's completely different. So, yeah, their poses are different. Everything's different, whereas all the subsequent depictions post-Raphael are all the same pose, almost the same pose, hand position, etc. So how did Raphael know to paint them in these positions, in this pose? Did he see this in Pompeii that was supposedly covered by ash? I mean, this is curious. This is curious. I Like Rune says, impossibly chiseled statues by Michelangelo or perhaps Michael the Archangel. Oh, that is a topic for another podcast, my friend, for sure. So yeah, I'm just trying to piece this together here, because what did Raphael just come up with this in his imagination, which somehow matched the fresco in Pompeii? Now, I wonder if there's something to this specific pose as well. So here's another one. This is 1823. I mean, I wonder if this pose has significance. But it seems like all of these art pieces are inspired by a single art piece. This is the Three Graces Library of the Siena Duomo. Which is Marchino's Three Graces. Okay, so here we go. I think I just found something. I think I just found a possible explanation here. So supposedly, okay, let's play devil's advocate here. Perhaps this can be explained. So this is a recreation. Now again, getting into recreations is muddy water because we have no idea what that means, recreation. So this is in the Piccolomini Library in Siena. So there's supposedly, so this is the 1492 commissioned one, but supposedly there was a Hellenistic Greek statue 4th to 2nd century BC. And this is a copy of that statue. And this was on the north wall of the Duomo di Siena Cathedral, built 1196 to 1348, consecrated in 1215 in Italy. So, So was there some kind of famous Greek statue of these three graces that doesn't survive, but it was around at the time Raphael made this piece? And what is the date of the Pompeii fresco? I mean, all of this is very murky water because we have no verification of any of this. So apparently there was a super famous Three Graces Okay, so at the Met, they have this, obviously. I'm not saying this should be trusted, but this is what I found on the Met in New York. So it's the same pose. It's a Roman copy of the Greek work 2nd century BC. So this is the Three Graces in a dance-like pose. And so it says here It's a copy of a Greek work, 2nd century BC. How did they know that? How did they know where it was? Like, so Raphael would have had to be aware of it in order to paint this? So is it possible I suppose it's possible that Raphael did not have the Pompeii fresco as a basis. We haven't seen any evidence that there was any surviving piece from the 2nd century BC. So we don't know. So I don't see any references here from this claim at the Met. Okay, so there's an illustrated catalog from 1924. Oh, they do have references here. So this is the claim from the Met here. I'll put it on the screen. So yeah, if this is true, then this Three Graces claim would not necessarily point to Pompeii being unearthed and visible. I mean, obviously all the other pieces of evidence, like the maps and all of that, that is still in play. And this might still be, because if there was no... this wasn't known, then Raphael would have been from Pompeii. But yeah, it says here 2nd century CE. Okay, so now let's look at the references here to see if we can corroborate this. Interesting. It is here. So, there's an illustrated catalog. See, the problem is this catalog is dated 1919. So, in 1919, they're making this claim here. So, we don't have... Yeah, I want to see how far back we can go. So the claim from this catalog here, illustrated catalog of the Canessa collection. Arduino Colasanti, 1919. This is a private printing. But, yeah, right here, 3rd century BC. So we do have some evidence that at least people thought or were fabricating evidence here that dated this particular statue with this particular pose to 3rd century. This is the oldest, 1919. There's another one. There's one from 1909. So we have nothing from even the 1800s to corroborate this. So this would all be... Yeah, this would all be post whatever events happened. This is all from the 1900s. And what's curious is there's nothing else. This is all we have. That we have this one little tidbit from the Met and photographs in the 1900s relating to this particular, what is claimed to be a recreation. So it's not the original. So this is the recreation. And the recreation is from this something that supposedly dates to the 3rd century. You would think there'd be more information here. We got nothing. Yeah, everything else is from way later. So most other websites are just claiming that this was created in 200 CE. At least the Met is being honest about the that it's a recreation. But yeah, there's nothing else here. So, and again, if they're working with the wrong timeline, if they think the 3rd century BC, if that's actually way later, they wouldn't know that. So they would just be referencing this. So, yeah, that concludes our deep dive into the 3 graces. So, okay. So the last point we'll go over here before we get to, we're going to be examining much more. But the last point I want to go over here is the Pompeii pineapples, which is quite interesting. So here we have, right there it is, for people that could see it, a lot of fruits, got a pineapple there. Did they have pineapples in Pompeii? And this is actually going to lead us into some truly mind-shocking revelations. Palazzo Massimo al Terme, close to the Termini train station in Rome, houses one of the world's most important collections of classical art. On the 2nd floor of the museum, in the gallery dedicated to ancient Roman frescoes and mosaics, you can find something very peculiar, hidden in what looks like an ordinary mosaic floor. Dating from the early 1st century AD, allegedly, the mosaic illustrates various food items. At the top of the scene, a basket of fruit is brimming with figs, grapes, pomegranates, and a pineapple. This fresco was discovered in Pompeii. There's also another fresco. This one's really creepy, so hold on to your hats, people. So this fresco, 2 serpents on a table surrounding a table with a pineapple. So this is in Pompeii's House of the Ephebi. There is the following fresco. It is inside the lararium on the right as one enters the villa. And there's yet another one. So there's 3 different, so for the goofs that want to cry anomaly, there are 3 different frescoes in Pompeii depicting pineapples. And then again, you have these snakes and a pineapple. So you have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 depictions of a pineapple in Pompeii. So there is, on Wikipedia, you can look up the official history of pineapples for the official narrative. So there would be no pineapples in Europe in 1st AD. Quote, the plant is indigenous to South America and is said to originate from the area between southern Brazil and Paraguay. Columbus encountered the pineapple in 1493 on the leeward island of Guadeloupe. He called it Pina de Indies, meaning the pine of the Indians, and brought it back with him in Spain, thus making the pineapple the first bromeliad to be introduced by humans outside of the New World. So unless the ancient Romans discovered the American continents, it would be impossible for them to know what a pineapple is. So we have 2 theories here, and I actually, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. Was ancient Rome a worldwide empire? In which case, they would be bringing pineapples back and forth, and they would know what it was. Or was this fresco painted in Pompeii post-Columbus? So we have this major pineapple question that the coincidence theorists probably don't even want to attempt to touch. But in the next episode, we'll be going over the water conduit, the water wells of Pompeii, which is really going to trigger the coincidence theorist. Because the more we look at this, the more it appears that the Pompeii question is nothing as advertised in the official narrative. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.